We're gonna try to keep on moving where we left off. We were talking about we just talked about a lot of examples of some good crossovers. But Kev, what makes a bad crossover matchup? What are some examples of that?
So yeah, I mentioned earlier the Arrowverse. It's somehow both. It's both in the sense that it made the Flash and it created Legends of Tomorrow, but it also ruined Arrow. So that's a good it's both. So it's a bad crossover matchup or example. Another one I would say Freddy versus Jason. But at the same, okay, so that movie was terrible, right? Like, let's be honest. But I will watch it. It's entertaining, and I think it accomplished a job. But the reason I say it's a bad example is because they both lost, right? Like that's so it. And actually, I think no, Jason won, and then he died. I forget how it ended, but something like that. I think Jason killed Freddy, and then Jason got killed.
Yeah.
We're not going to throw Chucky in the mix there. Freddy versus Jason versus Chucky. That's what I want to see.
Versus Alien versus Predator versus Godzilla.
Yeah, I was going to say another bad one would be Alien versus Predator. That's got to be on the list.
You think it's a bad one?
I like that movie.
They made a sequel.
It was just.
They did?
Yeah, they did. AVP Requiem.
They just get a little crazy with it, and especially in Requiem. I think the original one was okay, and they started to set up for some pretty cool stuff. But it was just interesting that I like Prometheus's background for Aliens, not that whatever the Alien versus Predator universe was trying to set up for Aliens.
I feel like that
you don't like
though.
the novelty of it, right?
Yeah, Alien versus Predator tried to take aliens and basically say that the predators made them as a race to hunt, right? And then that was the big thing.
They said that they brought them to Earth to eliminate, to hunt.
Whereas Prometheus is no, they're like the apex predator that we accidentally created. And so those universes just don't match up. And I like the new Prometheus universe. And
see, that's the thing though. I feel like they do, or at least every time
I feel like it can still fit in there a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
There's always an Alien versus Predator game. There's Alien versus Predator. They've been doing
the franchises fit well together. I'm not gonna fight that. I'm just saying lore wise, I don't like how they handled it.
I feel you.
I have to go back and watch it again because I think it was just like Dad said. I think they brought those creatures to Earth, which wouldn't make sense. Why would you go to Earth to bring? Maybe you are right, Jake.
The whole thing was that they brought them to Earth, and the humans used to let them go, and then there was a great tournament, and that was and the Predator had to use their ancient technology to fight the aliens while humans tried to survive. And it was like a fucking pyramid or something. Yeah. I don't know if you guys remember this now. I'm just saying, you're thinking of the cool Alien versus Predator fight scenes. You're not thinking of the movies itself and how it set everything up, because that was not good.
I mean, maybe so, but if we're going to talk about resolving conflict in a bad matchup, you can't not talk about Martha. We
did talk about Batman versus Superman. That being
Batman versus Superman as a huge bad example. And I thought that was one that they set up the world around it. They set up great, the ideological differences. I thought when you watch the trailers, I was super duper hyped for this movie. But the biggest thing I think with that one that tanked it was the conflict resolution. The big question you asked, who would win in a fight? Batman versus Superman. And the whole point we're going to the movie is for fucking conflict resolution on that one fucking question. And that's how you choose to resolve it with Martha?
I mean, we got it. We got it in a way, though. They did say that Batman would win that fight.
They did, pretty much.
What about the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
Ooh, I have to put that in the best crossovers, man. That's one of my faves.
Really?
I'm going to go against I love the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. That was one of my favorite movies. When I was younger, anyway. Now, there we there we go. When I was younger, I may need to go rewatch it.
I may need to go recheck it out again.
It's really bad. It's really bad.
But
it's a great idea. Just
if I'm giving my worst ones, I have to say another really bad one has to be the Simpsons and the Family Guy crossover episode. That was hyped up so much, and everybody was super excited for it. But it was double episodes of just nonsense, really, and that was a primetime one. Another one that hurt is when Steve Urkel was in Full House. I don't know why they put Steve Urkel in Full House, but
what about? Do you guys remember when Adams West Batman was in Scooby-Doo for some reason.
Scooby-Doo used to get all the crossovers though. Like Scooby-Doo used to have everybody. Dick Van Dyke would be on Scooby-Doo and shit.
Yeah,
I think they had the Ninja Turtles at one point.
Yeah.
Which that's another one. The Ninja Turtles and Batman. I don't really know how welcomed that was. You know, like
I don't think it was.
The one issue though I have with crossover matchups, particularly the confrontational crossovers, is the formulaic approach to it, right?
Yeah.
It does seem like a cheap trick in order to make money. Just, Alien versus Predator, Mario versus Sonic, slap these two franchises, put a versus in between them, and we can make extra money. Do crossover matchups lack depth, in your opinion? Kev, Jake, let's start with you.
So they can. Right. And because of the exact reasons that you gave, which is essentially that, like, if all they have to do is put two titans against each other like Godzilla and Kong, and it put asses in seats. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like people are going to come watch it because they want to see like who will win. Right. And so like, the big crossover stuff, like it can lack depth. But then I think like Civil War, if you told me that movie lacks depth, then, like I would have to disagree a little, because there are some pretty like advanced stuff in there as far as like the actual like conflict of
especially if you watch Winter Soldier, Falcon Winter Soldier this week. Like that all came back into play. The depth of that movie.
Exactly, and like the blip and everything. Like I think like there's actually a lot of stuff that like it can be an easy one-off, and I think we've seen those sometimes. Like I think like. It's usually in TV and stuff too. I think a lot of the CW stuff is just kind of like just to get people who watch The Flash to watch Arrow one week. You know what I mean? And so some of those are just literal grabs like that. But then some things, it's actually really cool to push the story forward. You know what I mean? And so
we did miss two ones of like that I think are the goats of crossovers and anything, and it's obviously Smash Brothers.
Yes, true.
And
confrontational crossovers. That's yes, absolutely one of the biggest.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yeah.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
also Timmy Turner and Jimmy Neutron. That was underrated too.
Oh,
yeah,
dude, the Jimmy Neutron. Nickelodeon.
That was
did
a good one. I will give you that one. It was a good
crossover
crossover in general, for sure.
Nickelodeon did a lot of crossovers. They really did. They were pretty big on that for a while too.
Yeah. Well, these matchups often, because of the formulaic approach, have a bit of predictability and redundancy. How critical, Kev, is it that a clear victor emerges from these matchups?
I think we'd like to see it. It doesn't happen, so I'm guessing, and they still keep making crossovers, so I'm guessing it's not critical.
Yeah, but does it? I mean, like all the ones that don't have a clear winner, to me, do like lack a little bit.
The problem, because
clear wiener.
When you have a clear wiener, you can't have sequels. So I think that's the other thing. Like if Batman had killed Superman or vice versa,
right, then they can't continue those franchises.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they still killed Superman at the end of that fucking movie anyways. Goddamn.
Right. Yeah. And then brought him back. Which really, now I'm thinking about it, I'm kind of pissed off now again, because the whole Justice League movie exists because Batman was trying to kill Superman. He didn't do it. Superman sacrificed himself, and Batman's like, you know what? To keep up, to honor Superman, I'm going to bring the Justice League together.
Yeah, that's the idea they went with. Yeah, that's the basic. That's the basic 4-hour plot.
4-hour plot.
I mean, like at least Marvel was like Nick Fury. We got some crazy shit that only the world's elite. A superpowered can deal with, so let's bring them together to help fight it. Batman's like,
Batman was just trying to build a defense force, and like, but that whole movie, kind of like being a crossover, or like thinking of it as a crossover, is interesting, because when I first, I always think of like two franchises having to come together, and I guess Superman and Batman are different franchises, but in a way, it feels like
universe.
DC, Marvel's messed us up, because Marvel has this big MCU kind of like whatever, right? And so really I think that's where they did. They made us think that all these movies have to be tied together and everything. And I think what we're seeing out of DC now is them slowly being like, we're going to try to just do these one-offs, because we obviously fucking suck at building a big, kind of like crossover franchises and everything in together, right? Because their individual films are all better, like in my opinion.
They are.
So
like
Aquaman's
good.
good.
Man of Steel was a good film. I liked it.
Yeah, Aquaman's good. Wonder Woman's good. Man of Steel's good. Like those are all good movies in their own right. And then Batman versus Superman was kind of just garbage. And then
you know what it was though, because they did those movies after they did Batman. Well, except Man of Steel, they did those movies after they did Batman versus Superman, where Marvel did it like the right way, where you build up to it.
But I think like it's crucial to have the fan service of like, we could have thought Batman won that fight, right? Because that's how it's kind of played out in the comics a lot. Batman's the big planner. But like Kevin said, the only reason why they can't have 100% clear victory is because then we won't get the sequels. They want the franchise. Yeah. And so,
no, I agree. I think that's a good point. I think it is, for me, the ones where a clear victor is there are better. And like, I went into Kong versus Godzilla, Team Kong. Kong obviously lost, and that
a lot of people did. And I've been pretty humble about that,
Right. But I think it's more satisfying that there is a clear victor, that there is a definite answer to that, even if it's not my team that won. And so, all you Superman fanboys that were so butthurt about Batman versus Superman, here I am, I made it. You said I couldn't take it. Well, I can. When the shoe's on the other foot and my boy Kong is the one knocked down. But anyways, the villain role is
Batman does beat Superman in the comics anyway. So I mean,
he does, and people just were being stupid.
Not to defend our TikTok too much, because I know we got in that, but the biggest thing that pissed me off is that I did the research. They have fought 12 times in the comics. Okay, they have fought 12 times, and none of those 12 times.
I looked up. I know what comment you're talking about, because I was like, Jake did his research before doing this.
None of those 12 times has their mother been the plot device that stopped the fight.
Right.
And that's what I was saying. People were trying to be like, oh no, it's not. I mean, he was being, that's their name in the comics. He was just being true to the comics. There's 12 fucking comics of Batman versus Superman, and none of them were the mom. Like,
the point that's so bad about that.
They know who the other is.
Yeah. The point that's so bad about that thing is that
Batman knows fucking everything. He would have known Martha was Martha Kent. He knows he's Clark Kent. Like,
and not only that, he's like, why would that change his memorandum all of a sudden? Do you think like he just like all of a sudden just fucking crumples over with every thug out there whose fucking mom's name is Martha?
We can do a deep dive on Batman versus Superman alone, so we got to move on.
We do, for real.
Because I was about to say, about to go off on my tangent. Because at the end of the day, that whole thing makes no sense. People were trying to say it set up his humanity. Like Lois Lane literally was talking to Batman. Like he knew he loved Lois. Like Batman already knew he had a human mom, a human dad, a human girlfriend. Batman knew all those things and still was taking the calculated decision that Superman needed to be put down.
Yeah, but just mom, save
but then
me.
Martha,
Well, with that said,
the internet.
The other part of these crossovers, and Batman versus Superman is no exception to this, is the villain role is always tricky, right? Either the villain is a mutual bad that the bad must team up against, or it's one of the main characters who's like mind controlled. They did that in, I think, one of the Arrowverse episodes ones. Like are side villains in these stories necessary to keep both participants as protagonists? What do you guys think on this? Jake,
so I think.
Sorry.
Me? Oh,
no. Go ahead, Jake.
Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, so I think, they have to, in a way, have like a side villain because, like you said, they want to keep them both protagonists, right? If they don't have a big bad that they come together to defeat, then one of them has to lose. Like, there has to be a loser if they don't come together. Or become the bad. And so that they end up like having to fix. Like you said, the mind control thing's been used a lot. Like a lot of superhero stuff is essentially, especially on crossovers, is that this is Superman with like some sort of mind control or something, and we have to like beat him and take it down because like Brainiac did some crazy shit or something, right? And so like the end of bad guy is usually Brainiac because Superman's not going to lose, right?
Right.
And so it's just one of those things where like I think they need some sort of middleman, right? That way the audience doesn't push back so heavily.
People can still be heroes at the end.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree. Kev, sorry, before we cut you off.
It's weird because most of the time, like, villains and heroes complement each other, right? Like Batman and Joker complement each other, Superman and even Lex Luthor complement each other, I guess. But
no, they definitely do. I could do a whole breakdown on how Superman and or Lex Luthor and Superman are opposites of each other, actually.
Right. So then it's like, so then you need, like, it's rare that one of either their normal, like, villains or arch nemesis, so to speak, become the main antagonist, because, you know, they can't complement both of them, and that way you'll have this sort of imbalance. So you always need, like, this larger than the two combined force, right? Like, bigger than themselves, so like Thanos or Ultron or something. And I think that's where Marvel gets to it, right? Like, they always pick villains that the Avengers or the entire MCU cast would fight together, right? Like, none of them are really going at, like, Thanos or the, like, one-on-one. They need each other. That's the whole point of them coming together, right? And I think that's where it is kind of imperative. And as Jake said, you kind of need that, because if they're fighting each other, then one of them has to be wrong, as opposed to what they're doing this, you know, like, and like, in just to go back to Freddy versus Jason, because I think this is a good example. They're both villains, and
So you kind of want them both to lose?
Yeah.
Well, they did, right? Like, that was the thing. Like, Freddy resurrected Jason to make people more scared or afraid, but then Jason was killing all the people that Freddy wanted to kill. So then that's where their beef came in. I don't know. It's riddled with plot holes, but so I think that's maybe that's where it doesn't work.
Some crossovers
where you have where you have two villains who are, well, maybe, I don't know, Suicide Squad. I guess they're technically, but that movie was also terrible. But hopefully the new one's good. We'll see. But yeah, to answer your question, yes, there has to be, like, an antagonist, and they both equally need to come together to fight, I guess.
You gotta have to have that energy focused somewhere.
The middleman.
The middleman, for sure.
Yep.
All right, last question, guys. Dream crossover matchups. Like, if you could pit two people against each other, who are you putting? Kev? Jake?
For me, and I had to look this up to make sure they had never had a crossover before, but two of my favorite superheroes are Batman, and, you know, like, I'm a basic bitch in that aspect, but Batman's my favorite hero, and Wolverine. Yeah, they actually had comboed together where they made Bruce Wayne and Logan into a single character in the 90s. It was called, like, Dark Claw, right? Yeah. And it was over designed and over gritty, right? Because it's Batman and Wolverine together, right? Yeah. Like, that's not like, but the individual dudes together, like, oh man, like, I think that would be such a fun kind of, like, comic or even movie or just something to experience, because not like necessarily Batman versus Wolverine, but like maybe them having to team up and fight something, or maybe Batman versus Wolverine, which would be interesting as well, because to see how Batman would take him down would be, you know, pretty cool.
I want to see some space matchups, and I think space franchises can really blend well together, because they're all in space, and everything's possible in space, right? So, like, I would like to see a matchup between, like, Samus and Master Chief, you know, something like that. That would be cool. That would be
I was literally thinking Master Chief and Commander Shepard. Like, that was literally.
Oh man, yeah, that would be
Halo
a great
and
one
Mass
too.
Effect would be nice. Yeah,
that would be. See,
I immediately went to comics, and my first one was obviously Logan and Bruce Wayne. You know, like Batman and Wolverine, and then I was thinking, like, a dope one also that's not really comic related but show related would be like Static Shock making an appearance in, like, Miles Morales or something like.
That would be the crossover of the century.
Yeah.
And that's Marvel and DC. So Sailor Moon, Steven Universe. That's one that would blend well together.
Season 6.
That
one would be
Universe wild. And, like, there's a bunch that Steven Universe would blend well with, I think.
Two movies that if DC and Marvel ever would allow me to, like, cross their franchises together, that it could make us a ton of money. I'm going to do Static Shock and Miles Morales. Then I'm going to do Jane Foster and Wonder Woman. And both of those movies are going to fucking pack theaters, and Daddy Jake's going to make a ton of money. So
there you go. Hire us, Warner Brothers.
And Apocalypse and Darkseid teaming up too. That's right. Just, you know.
We still need to make that super cut of us saying hire us, Warner Brothers.
Yes.
We need to do that. Anyways, that'll do it for our our deep dive segment, but we're moving right along into our top Zen. Because it's Easter weekend, we thought we'd bring you an Easter egg hunt. And that's right. Easter egg is a term that's been used to describe a message, image, or feature hidden in a video game or film, usually an electronic medium. The term was used in this manner was coined around 1979 by Steve Wright, the then director of software development, the Atari Consumer Division, to describe a hidden message in the Atari video game event. Our countdown is the Spectrum emulator, a emulator that was actually found in GoldenEye. GoldenEye 007 was released on August 1997, and nearly 2 years after the film. The CRAME cartridge size is about 96 megabytes, which is like 12 megabytes or something like that now. I don't know. Additionally, every cartridge in the game contains a fully functional ZX Spectrum emulator with 10 Rare developed games. This function was originally made as an experimental side project by Rare staff and was deactivated in the final build of the game, but has since been unlocked through fan-developed patches. And in addition to the Nintendo 64 game, a racing game was developed for the Virtual Boy, but was ultimately canceled before it was released. So yeah, there was basically a game emulator with several different games inside of GoldenEye. So a game inside of a game that took about 15 years after the game's released for them to find. Gameception. What do you guys think about a Spectrum emulator in GoldenEye? Can you believe there was a game inside of the game?
I have a cartridge of GoldenEye in my game room right now. And when I first saw this, I was like, damn, I need to figure out how to do it. Cause that would be fun to like just go in and try to fuck around with the emulator. Now that I know about it, when we were putting this list together, actually, that was one of the things that I told you is that this was one I had never heard of, which makes sense because it took almost 20 years for people to find. So
yeah, it was a very well hidden one. But it was probably more well hidden than the next one in our countdown. But the next one in our countdown is a fun one that a lot of people kind of jumped onto, which is number 9. Number 9 in the countdown, Kev.
Yeah, E.T. and Star Wars collide. Released only a few years after Star Wars by George Lucas's good friend Steven Spielberg, E.T. is full of references to a galaxy far, far away. The most obvious is the Yoda Halloween costume, which is also accompanied by a rendition of John Williams' Yoda theme. And like most boys in the 80s, Elliot's bedroom is full of Star Wars toys. Not to be outdone, George Lucas returned the favor several years later by inserting several of E.T.'s species during the Senate meeting halfway through The Phantom Menace. Take a closer look after Queen Amidala proposes a vote of no confidence. Her cute cheering lightens up a political heavy scene.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
This is how the world ends.
I have a claim to make.
Okay. All right.
Very, very important, controversial claim.
All right.
E.T. is a Jedi. Prove me wrong.
Oh.
He can float things with his mind. He has healing powers. E.T. is a Jedi.
No, like it honestly, with both of these,
it makes sense.
With the ETs being in Star Wars, it kind of like honestly makes that the most logical explanation in a way. And we've never seen Earth in Star Wars.
Well, because it's in a galaxy far, far.
Exactly. Yeah. And ET was very far from home.
Right. Yes, he was. He was. Maybe
so. By the distance of far, we know that these things could totally be related.
And we also know when Jedis use too much of their healing powers, it can sometimes cause them to be sick. Like obviously, they're dying.
They'd be draining the midichlorian from their system, which midichlorian is made out of the life force of all living creatures. If it's draining its own midichlorian count, then of course it would get sick.
Yeah. But I love that scene. And I remember the first time I was in theaters as a kid and I spotted E.T. just sitting there cheering as, democracy died or whatever. and I'm just like, it felt like the scene that you see, the big meme from fucking Once Upon a Time in Hollywood when Leo's got the cigarette hanging from his mouth and he's pointing at the TV like, oh, that's him.
Exactly. Well, this one was a bit more obvious, but it was definitely a really cool nod between two friendly directors. Now, the next one is really just a direct reference to the actor themselves, and that is a number 8 in the countdown. Jake, what do we have for number 8?
Yeah, number 8 on this week's countdown of Easter eggs is Pulp Fiction's quote on Nick Fury's tombstone in Winter Soldier. The MCU loves to mess with its audience by supposedly killing big characters only to bring them back later on or even in the same movie. Captain America: The Winter Soldier was no expectation, as it had Nick Fury faking his death during a big part of the movie, to the point where his tombstone was shown on the screen, and that's where we get this Tarantino reference. Fury's empath. How do you say that word? Basically the epitaph? I put it in here. Epitaph. There you go. Whatever. Anyway,
epitaph.
Yeah. I bet you didn't think I knew what a googly was, did you, Dotson? But basically, his tombstone reads, "The path of the righteous man, Ezekiel 25:17." Which, if you're a fan of Pulp Fiction, you will know that is how Jules. That's one of Jules's most famous lines in the Pulp Fiction film. And so it was a really cool kind of nod for Samuel's character and everything. And it also proves that Nick Fury was essentially a mobster or gangster that worked for, Marcellus way before he ever became the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. So he's got a spotted pass.
The path of the righteous man. I mean, we could tell he had a checkered past. I mean, he's not got an eye patch for nothing, right? It's not like a cat scratched him there or something. But this was a really cool nod. I think it was something that not very many people caught right after the movie, but it was one of those things that you found out on a BuzzFeed article after you watched the movie. Top 10 things you might have missed about.
It's hilarious because it fits in so well with a normal tombstone. With a nice Bible verse kind of a thing. Like everybody, you would see that and go, "Oh, Nick Fury, rest in peace." But if you know the reference, it's actually a pretty hilarious nod.
Yeah, it is pretty funny. Well, while that one was a very kind of nod quote to the actor in a very, very meta way, one thing that was kind of not as meta, but kind of almost like an expected Easter egg, the golden Easter egg for any fan of this franchise, if you will, is number 7 in the countdown, which is Batman Arkham's next game Easter egg. What we mean by the next game Easter egg is every Batman Arkham game basically has an Easter egg that reveals the plot of the next game. The Batman Arkham series is known for a bunch of Easter eggs and cameos across Batman lore, right? But the most famous Easter eggs are the ones they use to tease the next game that they're working on or where the series is going after this. And it's a tradition that they've kept constant throughout the franchise. In Arkham Asylum, you can find a secret room in Hugo Strange's hideout that details plans for Arkham City. So even when this game was first released, you can go through and you can find the plans for Arkham City in Arkham Asylum. In Arkham City, if you travel to the Falcone shipping yard, there'll be a particular ship that if you pull out your code finder, all of a sudden there'll be a spot where you can do your little code reader. And once you open the hatch, it leads down into a chamber where there's a bunch of fear toxin tanks and a note from note from the Falcone family basically saying they delivered a whole bunch of fear toxin to Scarecrow, who's been off island or whatever. We saw Scarecrow in Arkham Asylum, but this is actually the nod for Arkham Knight. Because Arkham Knight, he's the main villain where he takes over the entire town with these shipments of fear toxins. That's why we don't see him in Arkham City at all. And he comes back in Arkham Knight.
Wow, I remember finding that Scarecrow one and being like, "Oh, wow, what is this?"
Yeah. Even Arkham Origins ends with an Easter egg teasing the Suicide Squad, which wouldn't have come out until earlier which wouldn't have been revealed until earlier last year when they revealed at DC Fandom that Rocksteady was in fact working on a Suicide Squad shooter game. So they've been really consistent with these Easter eggs. It's kind of the big one to find in the Batman Arkham games. The Arkham franchise has always been known for really good Easter eggs, and even the creator of Arkham City says all the Easter eggs haven't been found in Arkham City yet.
Wow.
But with that said, this one's hands down like the kind of the coolest ones. I remember finding that shipping yard with the Falcone, the Scarecrow thing as well. And it was funny because the one that came out after that was technically Arkham Origins, but Arkham Origins was a kind of a sideline, like sprung up out of the nowhere project that Warner Brothers Montreal did because they knew that Arkham Knight was going to take a long time to work on. And so they didn't really necessarily plan for that one. So that one's kind of out of nowhere, but even then it still includes
combat's still fun.
The combat's still fun. I still liked it. I thought that the multiplayer was great, but I could go on about the Batman Arkham series for a while. But what do you guys think about Batman Arkham's next game Easter egg, making it as number 7 in the countdown?
I think you could have just put Batman Arkham series up here in general. Like, there's nothing but Easter eggs.
Tons of Easter eggs.
Even for like that was one of the reasons why you loved it, because you're like just basically traveling around Arkham City trying to, figure out. Well, some of these Easter eggs are actual missions, and it's just more into the lore of Batman. And you're like a lot of collectibles that you're interested